Second test of the Knights of the Realm selection exam begins. Known as the attack and defense battle, the 20 participants are divided into 3 groups. The objective is clear. The team that occupies 2 or more bases by the end of the exam is declared the winner. Victory depends on raising the team's flag at the enemy base. As the battle unfolds, a fight begins between the leader of the yellow team and Aster. Even while actively fighting, Aster remains confused about the situation. He tries to understand why the blonde opponent, who should have been on the yellow team, is raising the red flag instead. The blonde fighter responds with a confident smirk and reveals the reason behind his actions. He explains that an alliance has been formed between himself and Elmheim. This revelation shocks Aster, but the battle continues without pause. From a distance, an instructor observes the fight from above. Watching closely, he becomes intrigued. He recognizes the blonde fighter as Christopher Nolan, the legitimate son of House Nolan, a family renowned as the founders of court swordsmanship. Nolan carries the wing emblem of 5 wings, although Nolan had been overshadowed by a 7 wings candidate in the first exam and failed to stand out. The instructor recalls a crucial detail. Only 2 participants had passed the Arrow Tower trial without changing their expressions. Those 2 were Aster and Nolan. Both of them are seen as exceptional talents, rough diamonds meant to become knights. However, the instructor reflects on the unfortunate reality that both cannot pass this exam. Meanwhile, the intensity of the fight increases. Their auras begin to rise as their swords clash repeatedly. Aster struggles to understand the logic behind the alliance. He realizes that even with such cooperation, only one team can ultimately win. The blonde fighter confirms this without hesitation. He admits that he has already decided to let the main house win. At the same time, he reveals that his comrades, along with Elmheim, are likely heading toward Aster's base to attack. This realization alarms Aster. He understands the danger immediately. If he continues to resist here, his teammates, including Smates and the others, will be left vulnerable. Aster considers the consequences of defying Elmheim, aware of the threats associated with Gurion. However, the blonde fighter dismisses the idea of fear. He explains his actions as simple logic, comparing resistance to standing in front of a moving carriage with full knowledge of being crushed. He further describes knight nobility as a strict hierarchical society. According to him, such behavior is natural for those born into noble ranks. With that, the blonde fighter launches a powerful attack. Aster manages to block it with his sword, but the impact causes him significant strain. As he regains his footing, he notices something unusual. His sword has been scratched from the attack. Aster is shocked and begins to question the weapon itself. He suspects that the sword given to him during the exam might have been defective from the start. The blonde fighter, still smirking, presses the attack once more. Despite everything, he clarifies that this remains a one-on-one duel between them. He also reveals his personal disdain for the Elmheim group, especially for someone like Aster, whom he sees as a show-off. Then, with overwhelming force, he delivers another strike. The power behind the blow is so immense that Aster's sword shatters completely. A fragment of the broken blade flies past the blonde fighter, marking the turning point of the clash. The blonde warrior checks his sword carefully, making sure it hasn't been damaged. For a brief moment, his attention drifts, and that is all Aster needs. Taking advantage of the distraction, Aster suddenly makes a run for it. The blonde warrior immediately notices and shouts after him, angrily calling out for him to stop running away. He demands that Aster wait, but Aster doesn't slow down. He declares that settling things with him will come later, because right now there is someone else he needs to deal with first. Watching Aster flee, the blonde warrior casually puts his sword back and smirks to himself, wondering if Aster was intimidated by him. In his eyes, Aster appears to be nothing more than a disgrace to knights everywhere. As his gaze lowers, he notices a broken piece of Aster's sword lying nearby. Picking it up, he inspects it with disdain, commenting on its poor quality, even for a cheap weapon. Then realization strikes him. It was the doing of Elmheim, a frustrating and buzz-killing interference. Without any hesitation, he crushes the broken piece with his bare hands. Meanwhile, Aster runs as fast as he can. Worry evident on his face, he heads toward the camp, calling out for his teammates, desperate to confirm whether they are safe. As he arrives, the scene shifts to reveal Gurion sitting calmly atop a wall. With a smug expression, Gurion greets Aster mockingly, remarking that he arrived faster than expected. From the looks of it, Nolan hadn't even managed to stall him. Gurion recalls how Nolan had claimed he alone would be enough, which had raised some expectations. He then casually asks Aster how things turned out on his end. Without waiting for a response, he boasts about his own success. His side has already secured their third base. For the time being, he calls it total domination. Aster steadies himself, anger burning in his eyes as he demands to know what Gurion has done to his comrades. Gurion is momentarily surprised by Aster's intense attitude. But before anything else happens, a sword is suddenly placed behind Aster. It is revealed to be none other than his teammate Vigor. Accompanied by the others, nervous and uneasy, Vigor tries to ease the tension, saying there are no hard feelings. He reminds Aster that from the very beginning, he had said he wouldn't go along with this. He refuses to follow someone who defies Elmheim. Aster remains silent. Gurion bursts into loud laughter, mocking the situation. He points out that those teammates didn't even attempt to resist. No matter how foolish they might seem, they at least had enough sense to understand which side of Elmheim they should stand with. Aster regains his composure and firmly states that simply gathering numbers isn't enough to defeat him. Still laughing, Gurion corrects him, saying Aster has misunderstood everything. According to him, the battle is already over. The victory condition for this offensive and defensive exam is to secure 2 or more bases by the end, and that condition has already been fulfilled. He explains further that even if Aster desperately runs around planting flags at every base from now on, it won't matter. Aster doesn't have the manpower to defend them. All they have to do is wait for him to move to another base, and then they can simply replace his flag with theirs. As long as they maintain control of 2 or more bases, their victory is guaranteed. In response, Aster draws his sword and declares that he will make sure they can't do that, by cutting them all down. Vigor and the others are visibly terrified. Gurion, however, remains unfazed. With a smirk, he calls it a bluff. He points out that it was useless. Even if Aster possesses 7 wings, without a proper weapon, he is no different from being wingless. He draws attention to Aster's sword, questioning whether he truly intends to take on everyone present. Aster smirks in return, admitting that Gurion got him. He even expresses a hint of admiration, saying he's impressed by how well Gurion has thought this through. Confident and grinning, Gurion declares his victory. At that moment, Aster reveals the truth. His sword is already broken. Vigor is left completely shocked by the revelation. Aster calmly acknowledges Gurion's strategy, admitting that he planned things far better than expected. Then, without hesitation, Aster throws his broken sword to the ground. He lifts his head and fixes Gurion with a deadly glare. The air grows tense. The real fight is about to begin.